billion to fix the backlog, $700 million. The city thought it was too much to ask the voters, it was too much to move forward, it was too much to try to figure out. So they said, we'll revisit that in 10 years. So 10 years ago, another study was done. The $700 million is now $1.5 billion. 10 years ago, $1.5 billion. They said, well, it's too much, we're not going to go to the voters, we'll figure something else out. Maybe some stimulus money or other propositions will come from the state of California or the federal government, and it didn't. So 10 years later, here we are, it's $3 billion. So it's double every 10 years. $3 billion now in the backlog. So what does that mean to us? Well, we have a few options. Again, do nothing is an option. One of the things that we're looking at is, what does it cost if we do nothing? Well, right now, there's a study that's done, a national study. It's published every single year by the National Transportation Authority. And there's another study that's done by AAA, and there's another study, there's several studies that are done on what does it cost per road mile to drive a vehicle in every major city, and that's what we really should look at. What does it cost in maintenance, brakes, tires, rotors, drums? What does it cost in fixing your car every year? Well, I'm happy to report, once again, the city of Los Angeles is number one. We're the highest, not so happy. $744 a year in out-of-pocket additional cost of ownership and maintenance. So you got to think, well, $744 a year, what's the average? There's got to be a national average, and there is. It's $350 in every other city across the country in automobile repair. A lot of people say, well, I don't spend that a year on maintenance. Well, then you either have deferred maintenance or you're doing it every couple of years where you need all new tires, they're not wearing evenly, you have broken rims, all kinds of other issues that we've all experienced. And your car's not wearing the way it should be, and which is causing all kinds of traffic, environmental problems, slowing down 911 response, all those other issues because of failed streets. So, we know that if we had streets in A or B condition, if we could fix every street in the city of Los Angeles, it would save at least half of that $750 to be where the national average is. We know that with certainty. There's enough studies every year to back that up. So Joe Buscaino and I got together and we said, well, what do we do? We've got a problem and we can't just keep, if we wait another 10 years, it's going to be another $6 billion. We've got to do something. So we went to UCLA. Are there any USC fans in the room? I apologize. We went to UCLA and we went to Professor Leamer, who is the prominent leader here in the region that does the annual forecast, and he's the head professor there at the School of Economics. And we went to him and said, well, if you had a magic wand, what would you do? And he said, well, of any program at all in the city of Los Angeles, there's one thing you can do, it's fix every street. That if you did a general obligation bond, first of all, you'd create 30,000 new local jobs. And he also said, do not use city workers for that construction. Use the city workers for the maintenance, level of maintenance effort on the rest of the streets, and to make sure they maintain them in perpetuity, so you don't ever have to do this again. But hire private contractors is the only way, because in 10 years, when you finish all the streets, you're going to have all this new workforce that you can't afford. It's not sustainable. So we said, go ahead, and what he suggested, he wrote a white paper on this that we published as well on our website. But in any event, it basically says that if we created a general obligation bond, it would start off at the lowest year 1 and then go to the highest in year 10, roughly on a $100,000 assessed value of property, it would average less than $3 a month. And it would, at the apex at year 10, by the way, the highest that people would be paying in the 10th year, we would be done. Because what we're proposing is that we would fix every single street in 10 years. That we would do $300 million, $300 million, it's a lot of money, a year in a general obligation bond, because interest rates are the lowest they've been now at 40 years on GO bonds. So it would be a smart debt, good investment, creating jobs and fixing every street. We would be able to fix every major intersection of all those failed streets, from the left turn pockets, re-engineering all the right turns, making sure that the signalization is fixed with those, putting in the crosswalks that have been part of the city's master plan that haven't been implemented and non-funded, the cycling lanes, all the things the crosswalks for schools that desperately need them as well. That would all be part of it because we'd be re-engineering all of those streets. So with that, we're looking at the idea, and we wanted to take it out to the community and slow this thing down and say, what do you guys think? Should we pursue this or not? Or give up on it? And so we're looking for people's input and suggestions. And so with that, I wanted to just open it up for questions, if I could. That was a quick overview. It's a lot of information, I know. And it's a big issue that our grandchildren will inherit unless we do something about it. Yes?
Okay, well,
You're going to do this.
questions are handled through Matt.
Sorry, Marshall. Write it down.
You turned down the last one we wrote down.
No, you didn't. Bring it up here. If you have questions, just bring them up to me and I'm more than happy to ask you. Are you finished?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. I have a question for you.
Thank you very much. I could talk for another hour and go through a lot more details on this, but I actually prefer questions and to hear a dialogue and what you guys are concerned about as well. So, please.
The proposal that you're talking about, the 30,000 local jobs, we've heard that local jobs before, and when the jobs get contracted out, they go to foreign countries, they go to outside states as far as the contractors. How do you guarantee that it's going to be local contractors that are going to get the job?
Great question. So we're going to fly out companies from India. No, I'm kidding. The local contractors are actually, recently the city passed what's called the Project Labor Agreement through Public Works. Part of the Public Works PLA, Project Labor Agreement, says that there's a local percentage, it has to be a local benefit to local companies. There's also what's called a local preferential on the bid that's now done by the City of LA, that if you're a local company, you get an 8% preference on your bid, but they're going to have local hiring halls and job training, and a large percentage of that has to be that they've hired locally within the community, within the City of Los Angeles as well.
Okay, terrific. Okay, we have quite a few questions. I'm going to the first group of questions will actually address the streets, because that's what the bulk of it is anyway. That's what you're talking about right now. I'm just asking the question, so I'm going to ask the person who asked the question to stand up so that you can address them. Okay. Jerry Weinerman, are you here? There you go, thank you. Why doesn't the city insist that contractors who work in the street put the street back in its original shape, i.e. Riverside Drive by Fashion Square?
Yeah, Jerry, that's a softball question. This is actually this is something that I really get excited about, because not enough people actually ask that question. And this requires a little bit of an explanation, so if you could bear with me. Does anybody know how many different utilities actually cut into our streets, the local contractors you're talking about? Anybody take a guess on how many different utilities actually cut into our streets?
25.
25? Half a dozen? 200. We have 200 contractors, subcontractors, and different utilities that actually cut into the streets every single day in the City of Los Angeles. 200. Now, how many times have you seen the repair done, and then you come back the next day and there's a bump? Or you come back in a month and it's settled? Or you come back and it's all cracked and falling apart? And so the process, so I started digging deep into this, because this is something that troubled me. And I really wanted to understand it. I'll explain some of it to you, because I actually find this terribly exciting, and this is what I get to talk about to my kids and my wife when I come home at night, so I get to talk to you guys about this now. The contractors, what they do is they actually fill out a permit to cut into a work area. So I won't throw anybody under the bus, but like maybe you have the gas company or Verizon or AT&T or whoever, the Department of Water Power, which is also separate from street services. They're one of the 200. But whoever that might be, they come out and they fill out a permit for a work plan, and they go through the Bureau of Street Services for approval. Once that's approved, they have to come in within a 3-year time period, and they get 2 one-year extensions. So it could be a 5-year work plan. So they come in basically and they say, we're going to put in new fiber cabling throughout the entire area of Sherman Oaks sometime in the next 5 years. And here's our work plan to do it. Here are the streets we're going to work on. here's the times of day and operation we're going to do, and that's signed off by street services, and then it goes over to another department called contract administration. Contract administration is the department that handles approving those permits and then sending out a street inspector when the work is actually being performed. What the companies fail to do, including oftentimes the Department of Water and Power, but all the utilities and all the subcontractors fail to do, is they fail to contact contract administration to get the street inspector out when they're doing the work. And so there's no inspector to say, yes, you did it correctly, or no, you didn't do it correctly. So then what happens when you call and say, they were just working on the street, it looks terrible, they did a poor job, there's a bump in the road, it shouldn't be there, it was never there before, they need to come out and fix it. Well, then Street Services looks up to see who had the permit in Sherman Oaks, and they go, oh, shoot, there are 47 different utilities that have a 5-year permit or a 3-year work plan in Sherman Oaks. We don't know who did it. Well, what they're supposed to do as well is they come out and they put what's called a medallion in the street. It's a little lug nut in the street. It's a shiny little silver lug nut. And on that engraved is the name of the contractor and the date they did the work. Have any of you ever seen the medallion in the street? No. There's one, there's two. You'll see them now once in a while. I actually found one the other day. I took a picture on my cell phone, so if you're really interested, I'll show you. I was excited. What it looks like. But you don't see them because the companies don't call. Why don't they? Because what happens if they fail to contact contract administration? What happens if they fail to put in a medallion? And what happens if they fail to have a street inspector on site? Nothing. Nothing. So I'm doing all this research, imagine if you will, which is very complicated. I summed this up to you in 5 minutes, right? It took like a month for the city to tell me how this process worked. And I'm like, this isn't brain surgery. We need some teeth in here. We need to make sure they put up an surety bond. We need to ensure that if they fail to do it or follow through on the surety bond, we've got punitive damages, like they have to pay from curb to curb, or they can't work on another street for a year, or something that says, no way. This has got to stop. And so I put it in motion for that. I've actually got Contract Administration, Bureau of Street Services, and our inspectors working on that at the City Attorney's Office. And so that is before the Board of Public Works as we speak. I love that question. My kids are not always excited about the answer because they've heard it before, but that's what we need to do to fix that issue. And I certainly don't want to fix every single street in the city of Los Angeles to wake up 10 years later to find out we're still in the same mess because they failed to do it. The other thing is they should not cut into a new street for 2 years because you lose the integrity of the street. The asphalt and the aggregate hasn't fully cured, and it takes a couple of years for that material to cure. I mean, in fact, the Hoover Dam isn't fully cured, just to give you a sense of how long material often takes to cure. And so when you ruin it, you really ruin the integrity the second you split and cut into that. That's a good, yeah, okay.
All right.
Next question. But did that answer your question?
Was that the short answer?
That was the short answer. That's a great question.
We have a lot.
I'll be quick on the rest of it.
Thank you. Actually, I think Jerry's follow-up on that question is, before you go into taxpayers' pockets for these billions of dollars, why not fix the problem with those folks that you just talked about, so that they're part of the root of the problem as far as the failing streets?
Yes, absolutely. So that's exactly what's being done
Right, Jerry?
before the Board of Public Works now. So that will be done actually in the next, from what I'm told, very soon.
Okay.
In the next few meetings.
So the next question does not have a person's name, so you can address Kathy Cressy over there who's texting and not paying attention. I don't know who asked the question. Interesting statistic about the cost per mile for the road repairs that you just went over. The omission, what about labor costs as 90% of the cost? My question, city workers, labor costs, pensions, benefits. You made no reference about renegotiating this area regarding city workers' compensation package in line with the private sector and the usage of those savings for the actual road repairs.
Good question. And so with that, we've actually cut back on believe it or not, the street repair funds, because the funds that have been depleting from ARA funds, Prop 1B funds, the savings, if you will, is by no means, and I'm all for that, by the way, the savings won't fix a backlog. In fact, if there is any true net savings out of that, it will go towards the level of maintenance, which won't be fully funded in the next few years. So it's a good question. Thank you.
Charles Baker. There you go. Thank you. Is the repair work on the street potholes performed by subcontractors or city employees? Do you believe that exclusive use of subcontractors represents the most cost-effective approach to making the street repairs?
Yeah, it's a good question. And so it's a combination of both. And what I'm proposing right now in this plan is that all the major reconstruction, the full $3 billion work plan, the 10-year work plan, is all private contractors. The level of maintenance, the maintenance efforts to maintain the slurry seal program currently are street workers as well. I propose that we don't hire additional street workers because it's not sustainable, as I explained. So it's got to be that combination. And it'll be much more cost effective, as you pointed out. So thank you.
Okay. Jay, I think, Jay White, your question was kind of already answered?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same as
okay. Okay. And Jules, your question was already answered as well, right? Jules? Is that right? Your question was already kind of covered? Okay. Chuck Betts asked, so we're off of the, well, actually I've got one more traffic issue, but not road repair. Traffic up Ventura Boulevard. Is it possible, this is, I can't read your writing, Harlan Peterson?
Sorry.
That's okay. You've got writing like me. Is it possible to time the traffic lights at side streets better synchronized so that the traffic can move at a smoother pace?
Oh, great question. So the city finally is fully funded in their ADSAC, the Automated Traffic Signalization Program. In fact, I had a meeting this afternoon with our police chief, Charlie Beck, since I'm the chair of public safety. And you see all those cameras at all the intersections? I want to do the split feed where not only goes into DOT, but the other half, we split the feed and go into LAPD as well, so we can go after other types of crimes. But in any event, in answer to your question, now that it's finally all ADSAC, DOT is resynchronizing and re-engineering a lot of those. I know the major boulevards and the most traffic, Sepulveda, Ventura, Wilshire, are all on the top priority list. Where they are in timing, we can certainly find out. I don't have the answer with me tonight on that one for Ventura specifically, but yes, the answer is yes, I can do that. That should be done.
Okay, Wilma is in the back. Some trucks and SUVs weighs 4 times as much as Priuses and other smaller vehicles. Before saddling homeowners with the cost of repairing potholes, why doesn't the City Council recognize the casual effects weight has on creating potholes and damage the infrastructure? Taxing these larger vehicles is a status symbol according to their weight might have the added benefit of motivating people to drive more energy efficient, thereby slowing climate change.
Well, they actually pay more to the system because they're getting less per, never mind, okay. So that goes back to that model of mileage per gallon. The bigger trucks, by the way, diesel, if they take diesel at all, those are the big, heavy semis and et cetera, actually do pay a higher tax rate because of that. So that's already done. In terms of taxing the SUVs and other things at a different rate, I don't know if that's a state, that would be a state law and a state issue. That would be probably part of their annual DMV renewal versus a tax on the gas. I don't know how you would calculate that or do it. One of the things that, real quick on a side note, that I find fascinating that a lot of cities and counties throughout the nation have looked and couldn't figure out and still cannot figure out a way to do it. But if you can create a tax on the per miles driven, there's no way to capture that, truly capture that now. A lot of people suggest, well, it's just when you register your car, you'll have a lot of people, less people registering their car, and all kinds of other things, and actually checking it, creating another bureaucracy. But there's no state or city right now in the nation that's been able to truly figure out a formula and a way that works. It's, by the way, not just homeowners, it's all property owners, including renters, because those property owners would also pay for the general obligation bond as well. It's also the only dedicated revenue stream with certainty that will remain consistent It doesn't fluctuate with the market conditions, where we can get the best generation out of a bond. And just so you know, two other things real quick on that, if I could, because I think it's really important. City bonds, general obligation bonds, not a dime goes into the general fund. It cannot be used for any other purpose or service at all. Zero. You keep it out of the politicians' hands. That's number one. There's a citizens oversight committee of folks like you that sit on the board to oversee general obligation bonds. And the only reason we can bond for it is because we know where every single failed street is. We've got an inventory of it. And there's outside independent third-party audits that are done every year on the money. With the bonds that have been done so far in the city of Los Angeles, that have actually been out of the general funds, the ones the voters passed, we built new police stations, fire stations, libraries, animal shelters, all on time and under budget. In fact, we got 4 additional fire stations and 2 police stations, 4 additional libraries that were not part of the original bonds because they were all on time and under budget and away from politicians' hands from touching any of those funds.
You just said something I'm confused on though. We've got 2 more questions, but so it's not on the property tax bill. Is everybody's going to pay for it? So how does the renter pay?
Yes, it's actually collected on the property tax bill, but it's not a property tax. It's a bond, as we passed other bonds as well. How a renter would pay is if you're at a market rate rent, in other words, not on a fixed rent, but you're at market rate rent. It could be if the landlord chooses to divide it up and pass it through. Most landlords, actually in the city of Los Angeles, believe it or not, which is why most renters don't ever realize this, don't pass it through to their tenants. When I say most, I've actually, if you live in an apartment, how many of you live in an apartment now? Most don't get a special assessment or a bill for bonds. So
okay.
They could.
And so not the rent control units would not.
Commercial as well. Rent control would be exempt from that.
Okay. Chuck Betts asked, where's Chuck? There you go in the back. We increased the car registration fees. We added sales tax to gasoline and gas tax. We increased all the traffic fines, and we increased the parking meter fees by 400%. How much can people pay who need a car to get to work?
So, great question, and I couldn't agree more with you. I hear you loud and clear, which is why I voted against every tax increase, which is why I ensured we have no parking meters in my district, by the way, not one. Because I don't think it's right to pay for parking on public streets. That's my own opinion. And so, with that, and then voted against every the proposal for the asset tax increases as well. 72% of all of our general fund revenue, which is where sales tax goes, 72% goes to public safety right off the top, police and fire. Public safety, 72%. Without going through full budget 101, I absolutely agree. But most of those items that you talked about as well, unfortunately, go to the state of California and don't come back to us in local government. In fact, many of you, I'm sure, will remember the fights in Sacramento for several years because Sacramento was taking our gas tax dollars. For years, the city of LA got no gas tax dollars. We had to fight for that. We had to join with the League of California Cities to fight for the gas tax, just our portion to come back to maintain our streets. So I absolutely agree with you.
Okay, one more question, and I gotta thank this audience because this is the first time we've ever had where every single question was actually for the speaker. Remember, they always have to give my disclosure. You know, if I don't ask your question, it's not that it's, well, I asked every question tonight. It's awesome. Thank you. Give yourself a second.
I answered every question.
The last question is from Elke. Elke, there you go. What is your position on digital billboards?
What is my position on digital? Well, there's an article recently that you might have read where the city passed the recent billboard ordinance, and it said that the city council failed to include digital billboards and force them to be taken down. That was actually the article, and I know it's here tonight. I'm not sure who was anybody here that actually wrote the article? Sorry, okay. The one piece that's actually accurate, you're actually very accurate, but the difference is that the digital portion of the billboards were taken out of it because they're dealing with it separately on a separate track. So it's actually correct that it wasn't included, for off-site signs, except for, it wasn't ignored either. It's just running on a separate parallel track, or a separate track. That's coming next. That's the big thing. With digital billboards, I think it's up to a couple things. One, I think it's up to the communities to get engaged. Some communities, quite frankly, and I've talked to different communities throughout Los Angeles, say we don't mind digital billboards in our community as long as we see a local return, where we can use that money or allow neighborhood councils or decision locally by homeowners to decide where the money's going to go, whether it's graffiti abatement or weed abatement or other things. We can live with it on commercial zones. So I think it's up to a lot of communities to figure that out. What I do know is the ones that are illegal that are on right now need to be turned off. I'm absolutely, again, which is all of them, by the way, according to the most recent court decision. And with that, if there is a permitting process where communities would allow them, I think there's a lot of money on the table. I'd like to see that also a billboard reduction in place. So if you're going to allow in a community to have a digital billboard, I think there needs to be also a reduction of, okay, one digital, you're taking 30 other billboards down then. We'll give you the exchange. We want local return for investment that we can use locally in our community. I think those are the things that need to be negotiated if those communities, in fact, want them.
Okay, since you're a reserve police officer, we need you to pick the lottery tickets.
But I'm also a politician. You still trust me? So I actually have a question for all of you. Since you've asked me a lot of questions, first and foremost, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come meet with you and talk to you. I really do truly appreciate it. It's why I ran for office, and it's an honor to represent you on the city council. Even though I don't represent Sherman Oaks, we all end up voting on each other's issues as well citywide, right? And so I want to just thank you for the opportunity.
And I want to thank you, because one of the dirty secrets I don't bring up is there are a lot of council members that will ask them to speak at the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. They'll say, why would I want to do that? I'm not running for citywide office. I represent, West LA or San Pedro or whatever. Why should I schlep to Sherman Oaks? So we appreciate you coming and meeting with us.
One quick question. So, just by asking you, you've heard some of the financials. This is a very difficult decision. If we talked about a ballot, by the way, we would be talking about even putting it on a ballot until like 2014. So it's nothing that's coming up anytime soon. But I want to take people's temperature. Is this something that I should, and I don't know that that's the tax measure, and I don't know if there's some other means that we might figure out to tax per mile. We're looking at everything. But should I spend time looking at this to fix our streets and invest in infrastructure? Do you guys agree or disagree? By a show of hands, who agrees that I should continue going citywide to talk about?
Okay,
at least the idea.
Backup question. How many people are willing to have their taxes increased for this program?
If it stays out of the hands of the politicians, you got to add that every single time. But yes, thank you.
You're defensive about that.
Got to.
Rightfully so. Okay, Joel.
Wait a minute. Uncle Joe needs to ask you questions.
Everybody here asked me to ask you, do you really talk about this at dinner with your wife and kids every night?
No, actually, I never talk about the city. And I say never, extremely rare. When I get home, the honest answer is, it's always about their day. It's always about
we hope so.
I never talk. It was a joke, but I actually never talk about the city or politics. When I get home at night, it's all about them, my family, my kids.
We worried about your life.
That's
Jules, take it away.
All right, Mitch, wait a minute now.
Yes.
Out of all of these repairs that are done, these are repairs that were originally done by utility companies, of the 200 of them?
Yes.
How many of them have to be fixed all over again by the Bureau of Street Services at actually at a cost to the taxpayers?
I don't know the percentage of the ones that are failed because we don't know which ones actually go out and get inspected. So that's their
It's
life.
probably most of them.
It's a chicken and the egg. It's probably most of them.
Jules, the lottery.
Jules,
Okay.
did you write that question down?
I did, but Matt didn't ask it.
But I do challenge everybody to don't stop in the middle of traffic But look and see if you see the medallion. Maybe on a residential street it's a little easier. Next time you see the repair. And as well.
So listen, please make sure you clean up the tables, because otherwise Richard Close will have to do that.